have thought about, or do you think that's just something they're going to sort of stay away from, and it's been done in the past? Well, we say that Goldberg and Brock's been done in the past. That's back, isn't it? So I guess I would much rather watch that than what we're getting this year. But what's your take on that match, Matt? And is it one of those ones where, you know, since back then, where it was considered quite a big match between these two guys, how big would it be now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a good draw. The problem I would see in it would be igniting the views for this feud. It's like, how would they get these two in the same place at the same time to get into a disagreement that would lead to a match? I find the whole writing of the story would be the problem. And it's been going around for years as well about a rematch between Triple H and The Rock. You know, I would find that much more likely because they're more likely to have run-ins to each other. But The Rock and Brock are just so sort of sporadic in their appearance, so part-time. You would have to get into some sort of petty argument that you would think Brock wouldn't, because Brock's all about his personality is so different. It's all about competition and the right opponent, and I don't know. I would find it hard to digest if the WWE suddenly came out of the blue with this kind of storyline about Rock versus Brock. I mean, it was great back in the time when it was sort of like a passing the torch over to Brock, saying, you know, here is now the next big thing at the time, which was what they called him, and they said that he is now capable of beating anybody in the company. That was great at the time, but now we know this about Brock, and you know, The Rock is kind of looked upon now as like an older wrestler, and most of the people that he fights these days, you know, I would rather see Triple H versus Brock if I was honest.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, it would be you know, listen, if they booked this thing tomorrow, I'd be all for it. I've got to be honest with you. I'd much rather see Rock and Brock than Brock and Goldberg again, quite frankly. But that's just because we've seen like so many of those matches now. So I'm sick to death of it almost. And we've got another match yet. So of course I would, you know, anybody at the moment with Brock I'd prefer, but. Yeah, of course, I'd much prefer that. And in terms of their sort of superstar power and, you know, how many people know them, yeah, it would make perfect sense, I guess, because it's interesting. Somebody, I don't know who it was on another podcast, they rung in, they said something like they'd only started watching wrestling, Matt, in about, say, 2006, something like that, and they said, like, when The Rock came back to face to do. Well, first of all, he came back to do the WrestleMania host, didn't he, in 27? And he said at the time, "Wow, WWE have managed to get Dwayne Johnson," not realising he used to wrestle. But he thought it was a massive deal, like this huge actor coming to WWE. And I suppose you forget about it, but yeah, The Rock has probably picked up fans that we don't know about. From his movie circles and all the other sort of comedy stuff he does, and when he makes guest appearances on places and stuff like that, like he's definitely would have picked up more fans doing those kind of things, whether it's the sketches or whatever he's doing. That for us wrestling fans, we don't always see that. And it was just interesting that this guy, you know, had no idea that he'd already been in it. Before, you know, he'd had a quite a lengthy career and just didn't get it. So, but it's interesting that he would be able to have that still. And then, of course, someone like Brock Lesnar, who, you know, he's not in the same kind of entertainment level. He does not like making appearances on shows, by the way. He hates it. He hates people. He makes that pretty obvious, doesn't he, Matt? If anything about Brock, he's almost totally the opposite to The Rock. And that's part of his appeal, because we don't see enough of him that people want more of him. He doesn't speak. We always wait for him to speak because he's got his mouthpiece Heyman. And it's kind of like, you know, less is more with Brock, I feel, in his terms. So, and also, you know, it's true, whenever he turns up at UFC, he draws mega amounts of buy rates. He's still got to this day the highest UFC, that includes Conor McGregor, by the way, buy rate, which was UFC 100. So that goes to show how big of a deal he is. when he turns up to this thing. So of course a blockbuster match like that would make perfect sense. But in this day and age, the climate we're in, I'm not sure it would do WWE too much good in the long term. But then again, we're getting Brock and Goldberg, so I can't, you can't even really dispute that anyway. Matt, if you was Vince McMahon and you could only have one at your WrestleMania, who would it be? Would it be Brock or Rock for you?
I would say Brock, because I feel like I have to go logical thinking and think that Brock is a younger kind of superstar. He can actually put on a great performance in the ring. I wouldn't be too worried about the mic or on the mic kind of stuff at this point in time. I think when it comes to WrestleMania, you want to put on a show, put on a match, have a memorable match. And although we're getting Goldberg versus Brock this year, I'm sure he's going to try and do his best to work that as best he can. I'm not sure how he'll manage that, but if I had to choose between two, I'd definitely go Brock.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same as you. I just feel there's more. Like when he had that belt, there was a real importance to it, and I think he can. I still think even though this Goldberg thing's happened, I'm hoping, Matt, that it hasn't done too much damage to the Brock Lesnar image, and that eventually somebody's going to go over on Brock and get all that steam. But who knows? They might have done too much damage by then. Okay, next question. Oh, it's from this is a good one again, Matt. I think you'll enjoy this. This is from Leah, who of course emailed us last week. Oh my God, laughed so much last week when you played the clip of WrestleMania 6 intro. Well, last week I had an even more funnier experience of the intro of WrestleMania 7. Also, could you answer a few questions about that WrestleMania? And the questions are WrestleMania 7 questions, which is, was everyone... Oh, sorry, is that actually just one main question here? Was everyone fine at the time with WWE cashing on in a real-life war going on in Iraq to then do the gimmick against Hulk Hogan with Sergeant Slaughter? This seems like this sort of thing would never happen now. Did anyone get upset at the time? So Matt, I'm sure you can remember that WrestleMania vaguely. I mean, at the time I wouldn't have known what the hell was going on. I just knew this guy was bad, and he used to grunt quite a bit. Sergeant Slaughter. So he was a guy they tried to put in an image. What was the whole idea? Was he defected, wasn't he? He defected to Iraqi. Was that the kind of Iran or whatever it was with the Iron Sheik that they were doing? And in a way, yes, effectively they did really cash in on all that. And yeah, I don't know you'd necessarily get that now. That's for sure. With the PG especially.
Well, I definitely think it made a lot of people angry, and that was kind of the point. I think, to make people so much hatred towards Sergeant Slaughter that they were just hoping that their American hero Hulk Hogan would just overcome these odds. Even though some of the things that Hulk Hogan did in that match, I definitely was questioning, is that really a good guy thing to do? I would say it got a little bit out of hand at times, but definitely this had the buzz. Sergeant Slaughter was always great in the ring, but he always seemed to be playing the face role, and when he transitioned into the heel, it was quite nice to see as a wrestling fan that he actually had that kind of range, that he could change his character so dramatically. But when some of the stuff they did was quite interesting for the time as well, because we're talking about years and years ago, way before Photoshop, and they were having photos of Sergeant Slaughter and Saddam Hussein they were best mates, and it's quite funny now, but it was quite good for the time.
What you got to remember is, Sergeant Slaughter came out of retirement to do this part. They were looking for somebody that could fit the bill, and they thought, who could anger it more? It had to be Sergeant Slaughter turning his back on the United States, and probably wasn't in the best shape of his life. But the thing I remember that match mainly for was the amount of elbow drops. Someone should email me in. How many of those went on in that match? There were tons of them. It felt like he didn't know what else to do. So tons and tons of elbow drops if you watch that match. But yeah, it was weird. I don't think we'd get something like that nowadays. But WWE did used to try, and the thing is, Vince's logic back then for Hogan was find him the meanest, baddest man every year, and that this was coming off the whole Warrior thing, so they had to kind of get back on that bandwagon of finding him a nasty bad guy, and it just so happened to be Sergeant Slaughter. So and just for you, Leo, we will play that intro now, Matt. I'm sure you'll enjoy another Vince McMahon intro to a WrestleMania here. I don't know if it's a better or worse than last week. Maybe we should have a vote, but here we go, folks. I'm sure you'll enjoy this part of it. We'll just play that for you. And of course, this is from WrestleMania 7 right now. So enjoy. Well, there you go. Only as Vince could possibly do it. Like I said, Matt, I'm petitioning for him to do it this year, quite frankly. I really do feel like that would give it the added bonus. Forget New Day hosting. Let's just have Vince McMahon doing that little speech at the beginning to give the matches. I hope you enjoyed that, Leo. Thank you again for your question, and look forward to maybe you'll be on to WrestleMania 8 next week. Who knows? Shane now emails us in, Matt. I like how Owens is. Well, I actually said this earlier on, so I'm glad somebody agrees with me. I'm glad I'm not just talking pure nonsense. I was glad to see how Owens cut his promo last week. Do you think that Kevin Owens should be less scripted? Also, do you think WWE should drop PG? So first of all, Kevin Owens not so much scripted. Matt, does that work for you? I'm sure it probably does in many ways. But would that suit you better?
I think a lot of guys should be less scripted. I think Kevin Owens should be less scripted. I think Chris Jericho should be less scripted. I think a lot of guys these days could benefit from that, and they're not given the amount of freedom that they were like once upon a time. And it's kind of like, if they did that, you could see what the characters are capable of, and if they didn't put on a good show like one week or a good performance on the mic, you could let them have it and then say, well, we can't trust you, so you're going to go back on the script. But if they did a good job, then just roll with it. It's like what we saw quite a while ago, at the draft, and we saw Cesaro very capable of expressing himself emotionally and what it really means to him to be a wrestler on the mic. But given a script, he just sounds very wooden. For many people, it would benefit them greatly to be less scripted.
Sure, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And the whole thing about PG, of course, I would like to see it, because I'd like to see them where WWE can work matches a little bit more brutal in the sense of using blood and just the little things really that is kind of missing for me to make things too serious. Like the only good thing is when I do at least see Brock, I don't think PG when I see him, but I feel sorry for the other guys. Like Goldberg, for instance, gets away with it a bit as well. But for everyone else, it does seem a bit too much. What do you think, Matt? The whole PG thing. Would you rather see it dropped? And the thing is, what you got to think about is WWE is a business. Does it make sense for them as a business to drop it? Because then, like TV wise and slot wise, they're going to probably have to be shuffled around and all the rest of it. Well, what's your thinking on that, Matt? In general, with the whole PG aspect of it.
I guess it doesn't really make sense to turn things around right now. If things are okay the way they're going, then just keep on going the way they're going. If they're happy with that, then that's fine. But I reckon they should set a bar. Like, if the ratings ever drop below a certain amount consistently, then seriously consider changing the order here and putting it up a level. Don't make it PG